And now, the Lifetime Achievement Award is presented to Dr. David Warren. One of my heroes. This is for his significant contributions to the preservation and undertaking of indigenous cultural heritage, with special acknowledgement of his lifetime commitment and leadership in the perpetuation of American Indian languages and cultures. Dr. Warren.
Saturday Night Live has a good substitute up here. When Letitia called me and said, I'd like you to know that you've been given an award. And I said, what's this? Well, I'm 85 years old. And she said, well, it's a lifetime award. And I said, a lifetime reward. I can take anything extending my life. When I got here, they took us to a table, and there was one of these signs, reserved. I thought they left off the P in front of the R. They think they're old. You ain't seen nothing yet. I'm astounded by what I see in front of me. To think that there would be so many with so much to give to our Indian people, and to think what we have come from, and to wonder what we are headed for. In 1905, Teddy Roosevelt, who many have esteemed for his work in busting the big conglomerates of business, for his work in preserving the natural wonders of the country. But I wonder how many have read something or heard something that he stated in 1905. He was talking about the Dawes Act. The Dawes Act, which was designed to integrate Native people into the American society, whether they liked it or not. And he wrote, or he said in a State of the Union address, "In my judgment, the time has arrived when we should definitely make our minds up to recognize the Indian as an individual and not as a member of a tribe. The General Allotment Act is a mighty pulverizing engine to break the tribal mass. It acts directly upon the family and the individual. Under its provisions, some 60,000 Indians have already become citizens of the United States. In the schools, the education should be elementary and largely industrial. The need of higher education among Indians is very, very limited. Later, in the course of the work that I became involved with in helping tribes with the kinds of work that you have brought to unbelievable heights, I ran across a statement in a book by Jerome Bruner, a Harvard psychologist. He wrote, "Cease being a cultural person. Become that which you are not or cannot be," is loss of identity. It is the feeling that happens when, quote, when someone with the authority describes the world and you are not in it. There is a moment of psychic disequilibrium, as if you looked into a mirror and saw nothing. This is where our Indian people live with a legacy that few in the general society recognize, and even recognizing it, understand fully. It is behind the marches, behind the gathering at Standing Rock. It is part of another longer trajectory that we have yet to fully explain to the larger society. And that is the cultural trajectory. Even earlier than these remarks that I've read, in the middle of the 16th century, the Spanish crown convened a meeting of two great minds in the Spanish court, one Bartolomé de las Casas, a priest who had started as a very lone voice in the wilderness of trying to protect the existence, if you will, of Indian people in the New World, and Inés de Sepúlveda, the theologian in the Spanish court, and they were convened to debate the very nature of the native peoples that Spain had encountered in a new land. Native society, Indian people, have at best been at the margin of the march of so-called civilization. It has been a continuing, relentless process to do as Jerome Bruner said, to make us look into the mirror and see nothing. We have been fortunate, however, in the last few years, to see the beginnings of a reversal of this long-standing process. The people who were gathered in this room, who have fought in the courts for Indian rights, who have managed to bring at least to the congressional floor the recognition of religious freedom, the passage of legislation in recent years, which is the return of cultural patrimony, the repatriation of ancestral remains. That process has begun what I now look upon in my years of reminiscing now as a movement that is unprecedented in itself. It is marked by things beginning at the community level. The Indian language programs that have proliferated in this country have begun on community-based initiatives. Jim and many others in this room have been involved in traditional lands mapping program, which has convened people from all over the indigenous world in conferences who are restoring a knowledge of traditional homelands. The process has culminated in many respects with the National Museum of the American Indian, where people can come and view this history. But in my mind, we have looked mostly, even in the best of efforts, at the historical trajectory. We have yet to really look fully at the cultural trajectory. And by that I mean, people have yet to understand the significance of space and place, of the environment, the water, that constitute the very essence of who we are as Native peoples. The discussions have been mainly to defend what we can of the right to be a citizen among citizens, not to be understood as a cultural being among many other cultures. That process is underway to restore, to build communities. And I think the national view of Indian sovereignty, of self-determination, of government-to-government relations has all too often looked at this question in economic and political terms and has yet to fully comprehend the cultural terms of what's at stake for Indian people. That is changing. We are in a process that I think you are a vital part of, to restore the cultural integrity along with the economic and political integrity of Indian people. You have honored me by remembering me. I honor you, as Regis has said earlier, for what you are doing to be part of this process to build new Indian communities based upon culture and the integrity of that culture as the essence of humanity. Thank you for your honor.